Welcome back. This is Morning Express. We are analyzing some of the stories that have made headlines this morning, and we were on this top story of the Standard: rumble in Mount Kenya. Already looking beyond President Uhuru Kenyatta's final term in office, a vicious power struggle has erupted among top politicians in the vote-rich Mount Kenya region as leaders position themselves for higher political offices in the next year's succession elections. And this is what the front page of the Standard is telling us. And of course, this is hot on the heels of that coronation of Speaker Muturi and so many other issues that have been happening centered in the central region of the country, a vote-rich part of this country. Now, Mr. Ngunjiri, Kariuki Ngunjiri is a political analyst. You were telling us about how that the cultural aspect would feed into the political aspect, particularly in relation to next year's succession elections.
You see, you cannot wish away the cultural aspect within the political culture of any place, because sometimes cultural leaders have a certain bearing on, for example, issues of blessings, as well as even prayers. But I don't think the sophisticated nature of influencing the forces that would shape certain leaders to become president is vested on elders in such an age of where we are talking about certain matters being very broad in public policy. And in this case, I want to make this particular point. There is this fight amongst the people of the East in the Mount Kenya region and the West. And the people of the East are now saying, we have supported the people of the West. That is because Kiambu has produced 2 presidents now, and Nyeri has also produced a president. And hence, the people of the East feel that the people of the West should now support one of their own. And that is why the elders from that side are saying, and I think they proposed the same when they met the president in Sagana. That's why they are saying Mount Kenya East should be given an opportunity this time. I think I come from a county that has also been seeking the same. I come from Murang'a County. I will also say that the people of the East and part of the West have or owe a debt to Matiba, and hence they should also pay back. So that kind of politics is now going around in the mountain. I don't think it's going to end up anywhere, because we have a very critical juncture in the 2022 election whereby the interest of the people of the mountain must be in the next government. And in this case, there has to be a general consensus on who is going to the bargaining table to bargain with who and why. So that is the point. All
right. And Mr. Advice Mundalo, what do you make of that, those two elements, the culture and the politics?
You know, it is very absurd that in a country with more than 48 tribes, we have a tribe that wants to really look at the leadership of the nation now in terms of sides of the tribal divide. Like it's time for a certain side, the West, to favor the East of the same tribe.
But isn't that typical Kenyan politics?
When over 40 tribes have never seen that presidency. So when others are looking just for some are just looking for a cabinet minister slots in the country. We have a tribe that is looking at their side. Soon they will be looking at clans and saying this clan of this tribe has not favored the other clan. Before we know it, they will be looking at families and saying, now you see this family now needs to favor the other family. When we have over 40 tribes in Kenya that have not even been able to test this cake of the presidency. And I think that is where that's where the problem gets in the politics of this country. That our politics is very much tribal based, and selfishly so, that nobody really wants to care about having others also get a chance to serve and a chance to lead. But even when the time is so ripe, even when Mount Kenya has produced 3 out of the 4 presidents that Kenya has had, they still are not really very ready to say, now let's try someone else. Let us maybe support someone in the Mijikenda or someone from Nyanza. But they still want to have a conversation about now, why can't it be one of our own, but then from a different side of the
Mr.
divide?
Gunjiri, I hear you chuckling.
You see, I think for advice to say that there has to be sanctity in this politics, first of all, you must understand that to be able to win an election in Kenya, you must build a majority. So if you are not having an inclination towards a traditional institution in Kenya, for example, a church, for example, the youth, for example, any cultural aspect of building a majority, then you can only lean towards the tribal issue. That is the reality of Kenyan politics. So, because various people will lack organizational depth based on a nationalistic approach, that's why they will always build their constituencies, their bases, to be able to win these elections. So it's by default, and us also accepting that, we get ourselves into this politics of now getting together in certain, and we should do an inquiry, by the way, and I'm sure the answer that we will find is that geographical nature of the setting of our country does influence the interest-based politics that we have. Because, for example, if it is the people of the sides of Western, they will look at issues of, for example, the sugar industry. If it is the issues of the people of Mount Kenya, they will look at coffee, they will look at tea, they will look at agricultural aspects in that side. So the interest will be informed by certain geographical factors, as well as now, in Kikuyu, again, they call it Kamwene, our own. So in certain circumstances, I think we have been too ambitious, even when we've not allowed our politics to evolve organically, shaped by the natural factors, to reach where a democracy like America has reached.
Right.
So we must allow ourselves to grow and also not beat ourselves hard because of some of these factors. No, eventually, we will get out of these tribal issues and tribal politics. But
advice?
I don't think it is in this generation.
There must be a time when we have to make a conscious decision to start moving towards a certain direction. And that is the problem that we are having, that many of us are not willing to dare to dream and get out of that politics. We have people who have really tried to propagate that agenda, because it is basically not, it is basically selfish for a tribe to be so obsessed about themselves being in power at the expense of the others. And I think that is what continues to polarize the country in such a manner that we now see other Kenyans feeling left out within government, other Kenyans feeling like they are not really part of the country, other Kenyans really feeling very, very sidelined. Because how would another person take it? Like, we want to really transfer the presidency over an entire republic. Now we want to converse about it in terms of certain sides of a particular region. Why can't it be about a holistic approach? In as much as I agree that our politics is, of course, tribal, really centered on the tribe, but there is also a time in which our tribal nature of politics must not always be a disadvantage, because there must always be where people will come from. So it is not wrong for people to belong to different tribes, but it is only also right for our tribes to synergize, that just because someone comes from the Western region does not mean they must always think just about themselves at the expense of people who come from the Mount Kenya region or people who come from the coast region. There must be a time where we must be able to synergize and be able to feel like, you know what, for as long as we have the right leadership in the country, then we can entrust the leadership with whichever side of the divide.
Right.
And if you go by that explanation simply, it goes back to the explanation I gave you earlier in terms of why I believe the Mount Kenya vote is not solely a William Ruto vote. Because in a tribe that is discussing sides of its regions and saying we must transfer power to west or east, and the west has been there too long, it's time to give back to the east, how will they be able to have a conversation about now taking that same leadership all the way from Mount Kenya to Rift Valley? It is basically not very practical.
Okay.
So our politics, yes, is tribal politics, but then we must be able to start having a conversation about moving it out and not necessarily using our tribes to be selfish, but also using our tribes to synergize and just be able to take care of every other region. Because I want to believe that every other region has the potential and it has a person who can be able to lead the country.
Yes.
Not because we want to award them the leadership as gifts. Yes, they must work hard for it. It's a democratic process. It is about numbers, but we must not be too selfish to allow others to also partake of the same.
Okay, now what you both are agreeing on is that there needs to be a political evolution. What you're not agreeing on is, as how Mr. Ngunjiri says, it should be organic and over time, and it's going to happen, while Mr. Mundalo says that this is something that should be intentional. Only time will tell which direction that will take, but we cannot solve all our problems in one show. So let's move on to yet another story that's making headlines this morning, and that has to do with the president. The Daily Nation this morning is casting a light on the case proceedings surrounding that 5-judge bench ruling on the president, the BBI process, and the fact that he could be sued. We're told on the front page it's personal. Why Uhuru filed an appeal. Now, in a notice appeal filed by Waweru Gatonye and company advocates, the president has listed 9 findings he is aggrieved with, including the judges determining a matter against him without ensuring that personal service has been effected upon him. Mr. Ngunjiri, what do you make about this of this fallout?
You see, that was a personal indictment on President Kenyatta. Now, as a person, even if the decision overturned what has been the progress in the BBI bill.
Yes.
And I think for the president, the most important thing, as a president of any country, you need what we call public legitimacy. As in, people need to, first of all, accept you, and at all times, for you to enjoy the freedom of associating with all Kenyans without any of them seeing you in bad light. Every time your trading tool is legitimacy. Are you acceptable, and are you deemed as a person who follows the rule of law? Are you deemed as a person who is for the general good of the country? And so when the president is indicted by the 5 judges, I think for his personal now character, because that could have been well termed as part of a character assassination, because when you say Mr. Kenyatta has done this and this and this and this,
yes.
So you are trying to paint the president in a certain light. And therefore, I think that is why the president has decided to do a private case, or rather to seek to overturn the decision by the judges that he has contravened the Constitution, even as the Attorney General seeks to also overturn the other decision on the BBI.
Right.
In this case, it would have been easy for the president to keep quiet because he wields executive power, and whatever was said would have no implication on him in a tangible way. Nobody will be able to shake the presidency. It is possible that he has the powers to forego that process. But for the sake of clearing his name and also wanting to enjoy public legitimacy, yes, and that general acceptability, I think that is why he decided to pursue this matter.
Right, and that is indeed what the article is leading with. The lawyers say ruling is damaging, that ruling by the 5-judge bench, damaging to the head of state, and appealing is the best way to clear him. What do you make of this, Mr. Mundalo?
Yeah, I think I agree with Ngunjiri in terms of how the judgment was read and even how the president was referred to, because it is only fair that we build a culture of respecting constitutional offices, that even if we disagree with them, it is only right that we give them the respect that they deserve. You could even see from if for nothing else, if not for even the content of the judgment, my judgment of the tone of the reader of the judgment was very vengeful. The tone did not really come out more like just any fair process. It came out more like a warning.
Okay.
And it was calling, as Ngujiri puts it, Mr. President here and there. I think it was damaging to the person of the head of state. And also, I think there are many things also within the judgment about the president that personally I would not agree with, or maybe would wish that they are interpreted further. Because in a country where the magistrates or the judges have a security of tenure, when you look at parliamentarians have security within the premise of government. They cannot be arrested within parliament, and they have a right to say whatever they have to say within parliament. At least they are granted that. Now, in the same country, you want to tell us that the president is granted nothing, has nothing that protects him, and he can be sued at any time. I think that is not very fair. Very fair assessment. So I think the president, yes, was aggrieved, but then I would also not really wish that he went to court about it, because then it turns it into a tussle between the president and the judgment, which prolongs this fight,
right,
which could have actually just ended. And of course, he wields executive power, and he wouldn't really need to go that direction. But again, when it comes to judicial matters and matters of the law, everybody really has an independent decision to make. And maybe the person of the president felt that is something that needs to be ironed out. It's something that the record has to be put very straight, because maybe he feels it is damaging to his person. And so it would be right for him to go to court. It is his democratic right. But politically speaking, I think it aggravates the matter too much. He would have just let it go with now what is happening with the BBI and the filing of the Attorney General. I think that we could concentrate on that and go ahead instead of starting these other court cases. But again, it's his democratic right, and he has a right to go to court and just seek legal redress.
Absolutely.
And what gesture does it send? Because if you look at, let us look at, for example, a scholar who has argued on this matter of the executive, Max Weber. He says that the executive enjoys a monopoly of everything, including violence. So what does it signify for the president to go to court as a person?
Right.
It is in the construct of certain nation states, it's expected that the president will not have another higher body. Like it is said, the executive will have all the powers, and no other individual or institution will have the same powers as the executive. So if the president is not having another body higher than whatever he leads, now checking on him, I think it is very responsible for the president to signify that when you have a certain grievance, go to court, even if you are the highest person in the country.
So you think it speaks to, it's noble of him, or rather honorable of him, to decide to seek clarification for his name by using the courts, as opposed to just, he could do it in any other way, given that he has the power. All right, now let's shift gears to the Standard, and there's another story here that is ranking counties in terms of their revenue collection. This is on page 4 of the Standard. It says Embu emerges best county in local revenue collection, and we are told, according to this report by the Commission for Revenue Allocation, Embu, Kajiado and Laikipia counties have emerged as top performers. And the Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango, has said if counties can collect more revenue locally, they will reduce their reliance on the central government transfers, and this will in turn cut off the overall public debt. What do you think of this, Mr. Mundalo, given that we had a lot of push and pull between government and counties in terms of how much should be given, the revenue allocation formula and all of that, and then you're having this ranking showing that some counties are actually performing better than others, and then the implication that if they could do this, then debt would actually even go down?
I think I would really want to know whether the ranking is also based on the capacity of the county.
Yes.
Or is it based on the amount collected for every county? Because then if it's about amount, I would wonder how any county would perform better than Nairobi.
Yeah.
Because it's the city, and basically almost every revenue is supposed to be in Nairobi.
Yes.
But then, be that as it may, yes, it's a big up, and congratulations to Embu County for at least doing their work right and collecting revenue well. But then we have to look at it, and really the revenue collection streams of this country, especially in the counties, is something that needs to be very systematic.
Okay.
I would read that there is a process in which it can be synergized in such a manner that the way revenue is collected across every county can be put right even in the same way. Because if there is a place that Kenyans are losing a lot of money, is through the collection of revenue in these counties. Because most of this money is collected in cash, whether it gets to the county coffers or not, it is another story.
Yeah.
So basically, actually, if there is a loophole within the county government, it is in their revenue collection. And most of the loopholes within county government in revenue collection is man-made. Like somebody has sat down and they have decided that we will make sure that this system is not very systematic, it will not run in a certain direction, it will not be a certain procedure. And once they create that loophole, then it becomes very easy for people to now advance their personal interests and collect county money for their own selfish gain.
You are right, because when you look at page 4 of the standard, when you look at the keys, we're told a county such as Turkana, we're having even Marsabit, Mandera. It makes sense when they're ranking very low because of even their geographical situations. Yes. But when you look at a county such as Homa Bay and Busia, almost getting to negative 35%, then what does that mean? Because when you look at them geographically, in terms of resources, even human resource, they're not doing too badly, so they shouldn't be doing worse than Wajir. Is this a fair assumption, Mr. Ngunjiri?
Well, I think there are several factors that would influence the rise of the income collection. One, it could be that, for example, the automation of the process, now not collecting money physically and doing it on technology, like it happens in Nairobi. That could be one factor. Factor number two, it could be that people are opening new businesses and hence they need to seek business permits. And so they will pay a certain fee to start those businesses. Again, it could be because of the return on investment from the county governments. For example, Machakos, I think there's a stadium there called the Kenyatta Stadium, which a team like Gor Mahia will host a game in Machakos with AFC Leopards, and they will collect revenue out of the gate collections. So that would also be another factor, which is not the case in some of those counties that you're talking about, Wajir, Turkana, and the likes. And so I think for certain counties like Embu, it is a sign of, for example, credibility in the revenue collection process, whereby people are determined to pay taxes. That is one. Number two, the process in itself has been designed in a way that each and every person who is given that responsibility, for example, the people who collect parking fees, for instance, will not come and tell you, give me 100 bob, and not pay for the parking of the car. So they will come, they will check whether you've done the parking, and
so
then
many cracks.
So that also speaks to the kind of decency and honesty in Embu County. And I think rising in terms of revenue collection is a good sign even for investors across the country. So it shows that there is booming business and a growing culture of responsibility and Development in the same place.
Right. Nairobi has not registered any growth according to this outline. Homa Bay is